So I'm a keep it real kind of guy. So you have essentially federal aid was passed, but nobody has seen the money. An injunction was in there to water delivery. That's not happening.
Yeah.
So who the fuck's in charge here, and why isn't any of this happening? Because it seems to me like now that there's no cameras here and it's only a local issue, local
Yeah.
media maybe, it's pretty much the people who just created the situation in the first place, just trying their best not to put any money towards it.
Exactly. Because so like last year there was a partnership between many of the water activists in the state and a bipartisan um, cohort of our state legislature. We put out, like, they introduced the Waters and Human Right Bill package, and that had a lot of bills that would prevent another Flint from happening. And it languished for almost a year when the bicameral, bipartisan state investigation came out with a report. They cherry picked some of those bills as possible solutions, and none of those bills were passed during lame duck. There was only one bill out of about 11 that passed, and it was basically a public notification saying that if you realize that your water is poisoned, they have to notify the public within 72 hours. But all of the other things, unfortunately, was not adopted. So when you think that you fund what you care about, like, they don't give a damn about Flint. And actually, like, I feel like this what the state initially their initial response in early October of 2015, which was basically like, you take these filters and you be happy until we get this KWA together. And they haven't really
Explain what
moved.
KWA means.
So KWA is the Kirigandi Water Authority,
That
and
sounds sinister to me.
so it's a regional water authority, and it was like one of the motivating factors that created the water crisis, because the city of Flint was purchasing water from the city of Detroit. And when the city of Flint was under an emergency manager, the city of Detroit, under an emergency manager, um, decided to move off. The emergency managers decided to move off, um, and join this Kirigani Water Authority. We're also on the hook for $100 million bond and a contract to build this pipeline. And in the interim, they made
Whoa,
the darn.
whoa, what pipeline? Now
So
there's a pipeline
so
involved?
so there is a redundancy pipeline being built right now going to Lake Huron. So we're gonna have Lake uh 60-mile pipe of untreated water
So they,
coming.
instead of changing people's pipes in their home, they're building a pipeline. Is this crude oil? Is this natural gas? What is this?
So this is untreated water, and it can possibly be used for other purposes, because the only thing the untreated water is really good for is for other industries. So there are other interested industries along the pipeline route that are is interested in purchasing this water, and it seems like daily, as people review all of the emails that are being released, that this pipeline was really for corporations and large industries, and not necessarily to meet the needs of residents. But all that to say, it's still in alignment with regardless of what that motivation is, it's in alignment with the ideology of the emergency manager law, which Wall Street is the major benefactor, and in private industry is the major benefactor through the privatization of resources, and residents that live in those communities are not.
Well,
They're the big loser.
it was just shown. There was one of the few things they've done well recently. The New York Times had a story out about Bayonne, New Jersey. They've privatized the water, and people have seen a 28% increase in their bill. So, go figure. I want to ask kind of a broader question. You're African American. You're Muslim. When I was in Detroit in October, I talked to other African Americans, and they think the destruction of Detroit has been intentional, and that essentially it's Republicans, neoliberal Democrats, who essentially are trying to just force people out of the city and then gentrify. I'm not saying that this water crisis was intentional on the governor. I, what I don't think I don't think it was intentional that there was going to be a lead issue, but do you think the result and their behaviors after, it certainly would not be the case in Bel Air or the Upper East Side of New York. If there was any issue with the water, the cavalry would be in 5 minutes, and there wouldn't be no brochures because the issue would be done probably in a month. So obviously, as a minority, what do you think in terms of the overall actions and why they're doing it?
Well, America has a long-standing history with racism and white supremacy and the policies that stem from that. The application of the emergency manager law happened primarily in African American cities, and even though in the city of Flint we have probably about 67% African American population, and I mean there are white people here too, like they just kind of got caught up in the collateral damage, like their collateral damage of these policies. And I think that until we actually have an authentic conversation about the role of white supremacy and how it has influenced federal programs and public policy, and I think also because Michigan is also super hyper segregated compared to other areas. Like Detroit is one of the most racially segregated metropolitan areas in the country. So you can just say, you can use like kind of dog whistle words like Detroit, and people automatically know that that is like an African American city. So I think that even beyond even beyond the gentrification, these urban areas are where the resources are at, and very profitable resources, even though they may be financially struggling. Like you still have, I mean, I can't remember how many billions of dollars the Detroit Water and Sewer Department is worth. And before the Detroit bankruptcy, they still had some sort of control over the Detroit Institute of Arts. And the city of Flint, like we have the water and sewer department, which is an enterprise department, which means basically you can make a profit off of it. And it's worth millions of dollars. Like one of the previous emergency managers, Michael Brown, who was our first emergency manager in December of 2011, and then came back after 2013. He initially proposed like using the surplus from the water and sewer department to basically get the city of Flint out of debt. So, but I think that Michigan needs to take a long, hard look of their policies of one creating these financial crises because they're shifting money going from residents into tax breaks to private corporations, and then punishing communities because they cannot use them use they cannot like make ends meet. So I think that like what some of these policies which are geared towards profiting for the 1%, like they need to be reevaluated and really struck down.